Welcome to Raising Excellence. It's another episode of our podcast where we talk about different challenges that we might be experiencing and talking about how you might solve them. Today, we're very excited to be finally rejoined by our wonderful Dennis Eckart, who is going to be telling us about what he did in the last 2 weeks in Jamaica and how he's changing the world. So today I'm also joined by Michael, who is. Oh, you have to say something to come on the screen.
Hello, everybody. Glad to
And
be here.
I'm also joined by Willow, who is here also with me,
Hello.
and Tim.
Hi, guys.
Oh, you have to be longer. I don't know. My screen didn't switch.
Oh, it didn't switch.
Oh,
No, I'm not
this
switching
is
either, but you
Tim.
can still hear me.
They can still hear you. And of course, the guest of honor, Mr. Dennis Eckart.
Hi, everybody. Great to be here.
Nice. I didn't really do the name tags for the beginning, but we'll see. We'll do better next. So today we wanted to talk to Dennis about what he's done in the last couple of weeks and ask him some really deep questions about his project in Jamaica. The whole theme of the month is tackling Christmas together, and this week is turning suffering into gratitude. So Dennis did that in 5 ways and one, or maybe even more ways than that, in Jamaica. So why don't you tell us about your last 2 weeks and what happened, and we'll ask questions as necessary.
Sure. So the last 2 weeks I spent in Jamaica, a very nice island in the Caribbean, which has been my home for more than 15 years. And yeah, so it was fantastic because after a year of being in the colder realms of this earth, I was able to, to meet back, to rejoin with my students, my extended family, so to say, and a place that has been my home for more than a decade and a half. And it was rather busy, but also extremely fruitful in terms of the work that I got done. And so it just it went past me really quickly. So it felt like my feet were barely touching the ground as I was trying to get everything that I set out to do done. And then of course it was really coined by mostly reconnecting with students.
So hang on,
So I
let me
was
back up for just a second. What are you teaching these students? Who are these students and what you're teaching? What are you teaching them?
Sure. So I have been teaching them capoeira, which is an Afro-Brazilian martial art slash dance slash culture. And I came to Jamaica in 2004, and I started to teach especially children and youths from inner city communities in Kingston, but also work with children and youths from several communities in all over the island basically. And I taught in schools, I taught in community centers, in on the roadside, in dance schools, martial arts schools. I eventually established capoeira at the Edna Mandalay College, which is like a high school for dance. I taught capoeira at the university as well, and at many different locations all over Jamaica. And I set up a little organization, a charitable organization that has the aim of promoting peace and nonviolence through capoeira. And so the flagship project of this little organization is called Capoeira for Peace. And then later on, I merged that with another aim, the second aim of that organization, which is to promote harmonious living with the environment. And there we use permaculture and recycling projects in order to also engage children and youth, especially in projects and in programs that offer them to take a different perspective at life, and that build alternative skills and non-traditional skills that could be easily applied to transform not only your immediate environment, but also your community and your life basically, and which give new options of interacting with other people, with your community, with the nation, and also with who you really are. So it's like it's a multi-pronged approach, which is designed to engage as many children and youth as possible, and to give them alternatives and different opportunities of living a sustainable life and of finding harmony and peace with themselves, but also with others.
And is it true that you taught a lot of underprivileged children in Jamaica, and that's why this project brought the international attention to it?
Yeah, so I can safely say I would have engaged like literally like thousands of children and youths, and then of course there's like a core group which over the years, out of that core group of people that like really stuck to regular training throughout the years, there has been also like a body of trainers and instructors which are now carrying on the practical work in some communities, and also in a rented school where we have been working from. And yeah, but like I've really focused on inner city communities.
You don't quite look old enough to have made this kind of an impact on a country.
It's a small country. So well, when I reached Jamaica, I was like, I must have been what, 21, 22? Yeah, I must be now what, 37? So yeah.
That's amazing.
Guiding, I hope there's some more time left still, to do more work. And yeah, but it has been rewarding, maybe not necessarily like in economical ways, but in many other ways. And that's something really, actually that has been one of the goals also, why I decided to go to Jamaica in the first place, because I felt I could have had an impact, here as well in Germany, where I was born and where I grew up. But somehow I don't know, I think I was a little afraid at the time being of staying here, because Capoeira at the time being had made such a profound impact on my own personal life, that I thought I was motivated by helping others with what I love most. And that really, like when I heard about Jamaica, and I heard about the cultural similarities between Brazil and Jamaica, and the historical background, and the social situation there, I thought, wow, if this art can have such a profound impact on my own life, like how much more helpful could it be for somebody who's really like struggling to make ends meet, in a place like Jamaica.
So Dennis, did you get started in capoeira before you went to Jamaica or after you went?
Yeah, before. My martial arts history started when I was 6 years old, so I did judo. And then I had like a phase of 5 years where I trained karate like very intensely, and I competed on national and on international competitions here in Germany. And then I came across capoeira when I was about 17, and after like a short while of parallel training, like I decided that was just not only what I wanted to do, but what I wanted to be and what I wanted to live. So I met my Mestre Mendes, who is a Brazilian who has been living here in Germany for I think 30 odd years. And so he became my capoeira mestre. And then before ending up in Jamaica, I traveled to Brazil on 4 occasions, and I lived there for 6 months and for several months at a time. And then I was traveling throughout Europe as well, attending different workshops and encounters, and hitchhiking around the place, and like gaining some experience within the capoeira world here in Europe. And then I did one more trip back to Brazil, and then when I came back to Germany, I decided to do a nutrition and a personal training or a fitness trainer license, and then I sent myself to Jamaica.
Nice.
So you must have been apprehensive about going to Jamaica. I mean, what led you to that specific place?
Yeah, that's a great question. I thought of it a lot, and I have to say that ultimately it was really music. So it was through music and through reggae music, which at that time when I was 17, it kind of just started to gain space in my life. So and like oftentimes I couldn't even really understand exactly the words of the songs, but something really resonated deeply with me about reggae music. And then I started to read the text and find out more, and study a little bit about where reggae came from and what's the background. And I found out that it was really like it was also like a vibe or like a philosophy of liberation. It was it was invented by the poorest of the poor, and it was like an expression of a true expression of the people, like of freedom, of liberty, of peace. And so I was like, wow, that really strikes close to where capoeira comes from, because capoeira is an expression of enslaved Africans in Brazil, which used it not only to physically free themselves and fight down the slave drivers in order to free themselves from physical slavery, but they also used it as a form of social interaction, of non-verbal language, where you express your emotions, your states through movement, as they would have been purposefully mixed up on the slave ships and later on the plantations in order to make it hard for them to communicate and to rebel. So they used capoeira also as a form of communicating with each other and of kind of preserving some of their traditions. And then I was like, wow, that whole philosophy of freedom, of liberation, of capoeira, it seems really, close to what reggae also is expressing. And then I started to research on Jamaica, and I found out about the Maroons, the Maroon movement in Jamaica, which is a movement of former slaves who also freed themselves from slavery, not with capoeira, because that was not something that was prevalent in Jamaica at the time, but they fought the Spanish and later the English, which was the colonial power in Jamaica, and they would hide themselves in the bush, especially in the high mountains, and they would actually successfully fight the English to a degree where the English actually gave up, because after several decades, just like in Brazil, the English in Jamaica and the Portuguese in what today is Brazil, they had to admit that they could not overcome the guerrilla warfare techniques of the Maroons, or of the quilombolas, as they were called in Brazil. And then they would do contracts with them and basically guarantee them land and guarantee them an autonomous area, which in case of Jamaica, the Maroons still maintain until today. So there are several Maroon zones until today, which is not crown land, which is owned by the people. So you cannot buy that land, you cannot own it in any which way, but it's basically bloodline passed down to the descendants of those Maroons. So when I heard about the Maroons movement and I went deeper into reggae philosophy, I was like, wow. I started to research if capoeira was already established in Jamaica, and none of the mestres that I knew could tell me about it. And I was like, wow, how can that be? Because capoeira is like a global phenomenon today, and is almost prevalent in almost every country around the world. And then I started to research on the internet. I couldn't find any group or anybody teaching there. And I said, well, I have to, just jump on a plane and look for myself if capoeira was there. And then in my mind, I thought, people who would be conscious about their culture there, about their history, it must be very easy for them to identify with capoeira. And I thought that I surely would find people who would be open to, learn capoeira and would be able to identify with capoeira. If a youth who was born and grown in Germany can love capoeira so much and can identify with it so much, then surely it must be much easier for any Jamaican to do that. So that was kind of like the vibe, how I ended up in Jamaica.
So I really like that, Denison. So what was your first day in Jamaica like?
It was everything but what I expected. Like, so my expectations, I think, were heavily coined by my trips to Brazil, and I love Brazil like so much. It was amazing. Like I really love Brazil, and I thought, well, how is it gonna be like in Jamaica? And I had this kind of idea also. People like, because of my hairstyle and my looks, and so like people would judge me, which is very interesting also. Like so in Brazil it was even worse in Brazil, like in southern Brazil especially, which is which has a strong European and also Asian influence. So if you run around with black people here, there is a white man, like people, they wouldn't understand it. Like it just, it was a concept beyond most people. And then in Germany, it's more like discreet, but people would look, and then it's like, they would say, oh, he's lazy, doesn't like to work, he smokes ganja all day, and so many people would have an opinion about myself before me even opening up my mouth or speaking to them, like even for a minute.
Wait, but that's not true, because you personally don't actually smoke ganja.
No, I don't. I never have. So but if people would ask me about that, and I would say that, it would even make it worse. They would even less believe me, because it was like, no way, you're joking or whatever. So at that point of my life, and I was just like 20, little bit 21 or 22. So I thought like, well, like I was kind of fed up with that, and I just was longing for a place where I would be accepted as I am. So I don't know, somehow I thought Jamaica could be a place, where I could just blend in, but that was really that was really not the case. So the first day after I dropped off the plane, so to say, I didn't really know where to go and what to look for. And I didn't have any aim, but I ended up for the first 2 weeks I lived up in the hills in Battletown, which is like close to Mobile. Like I had to fly into Montego Bay, which is the second biggest town in Jamaica, which is on the north coast. So most tourists would fly there. Most flights from the States and from Europe also will go there because it's mostly tourists visiting Jamaica. And then well, it's a tourist, it's an area that a lot of tourists go to, so that the locals also are adept to the tourists. So there's some professional hustlers and people know to deal with people who just drop off the plane or drop off the big cruise ship. So for the first day and actually the first 2 weeks or so, I just walked through the town and and the first experience was like, because I was walking around and people, the way people talk there, it just seemed so super like harsh to me, like aggressive. They were, hey, white boy, come here, I want to talk to you. And then they were talking, like, I thought like, all right, I had English like 9 years in school and I certainly wasn't the best student, but I thought, I could help myself. But then people were not talking English, but they were talking Patois, which is like a local language. People say slang, but it actually seems to be a language and people are fighting to establish it as a recognized language. So it's like a cut down English with influences with African words, but also with some Portuguese and Spanish influences. And so the way people would talk, it was like so contrary to what I would have been accustomed, growing up in Germany, where like, people only scream if they're, about to die, which almost never happens. So there are people like would scream and be very loud and intimidating. I was like, whoa, this guy is coming towards me and like he wants to fight me, but he's actually just saying, hello, what's going on? And then so it took me a while to find that out. And but also there's a lot of like like sneakiness, so people would be like tricky and kind of trying to be intimidating just to see how I react, and then if I get serious or if I would be able to make a joke and turn it around. So the first days actually we're just really like trying to feel out the vibe of the place and trying to get a feeling of the place. And I started to walk the town because I didn't know how to take the buses or how to take route taxis. So I just walked the town like all day, and then people would actually, if they see you twice walking on the same road, they already know you. And they were like, oh, this guy like walked this road 3 times today, so he must have walked, really far. So people like started to look twice, and then they start to ask me questions and who I am and where I'm coming from, what I'm doing, because I wasn't moving like the regular tourist, I guess. And then I started to talk to people, and that was interesting because it was so easy to talk to people, which here in Germany, is like not so easy. But so that was nice, and I make like some contacts, and I start to ask around, is there any martial arts schools? Is there any dance schools? Is there any, like social community centers? And so those were the first days, really like looking for, some people to connect in some places that possibly could be interested in me, in capoeira basically. So and I ended up in a karate school, the only karate school that was there at the time, and that's where I ended up like sleeping as well for the first couple of weeks. So they let me sleep there at night on the floor, and then I started teaching some karate students, and that's like kind of how I got my foot into the door, so to say, in Montego Bay. But it was way different from what I expected it to be. Like I didn't blend in at all, but I was the white boy and the white man, and so yeah, it was really funny. Like later on, I would walk through Kingston, and then, like people test you out there as well. So they're very, they shout something at you and they test out like what your vibe is. And then according to, how you answer and how you posture yourself, they will know how long you've been around and, just, where you're depending, like what kind of energy you carry with you. And that's really interesting. So I would get like some, like a tall white guy who is walking through the ghetto in Kingston or in Montego Bay is like, the first image that comes to people's mind is Jesus. So people say, hey, Jesus, why Jesus? What's going on? So it was so fun. And then also, like I would walk with a instrument in my hand, which is like, it looks like a bow. It's like a stick, but I would have to set it up. So if I don't set it up, it looks like a stick. And then they saw like, a white man with long hair and with a stick in his hand. So they were like, yo, Moses, how are you doing? But so it was like, like some funny situations like that that really made up for some of the rather unpleasant situations. And I learned quickly how to adapt and how to adapt to some of the of some patois, basically, because I still wanted to blend in, and I didn't want to, already like was out of place by, I guess, the size or the color of my skin. But like that made me so much more eager to wanting to blend in terms of the language. So I tried to catch on to the language as quickly as I could. And then by living in one of the inner city communities in Kingston for the first 2 years, so that helped a lot as well. It made it very hard, but it helped also to catch on with the language and with the way how people talk there. And that became something I later on taught to people that came to Jamaica to do social work and for volunteers. That's something I taught all of them, like to try to catch on to some phrases of patois right away, because it shows that you're genuinely interested in communicating with the people. And then, you don't come as somebody who wants to, I don't know, oppress them, which is still like a big theme, like in Jamaica today with the heavy history that they have. But, you show that you're open, that you're wanting to learn, that you're trying to talk like them. And that really opened up a lot of doors for me from the first day on.
You were talking about like learning the language, and I only have one experience of living out of the country, but I remember the first words that I learned how to say was "I'm sorry." Made me wonder, what is the first phrase that you learned how to say efficiently?
Wagwan.
What does that mean?
Wagwan in English is what is going on. So that is patois right there. Yeah. So that's basically a way of saying, hey, how are you doing? Or, are you all right? And what's going on, basically. And then that is like how people, touch base with each other, so to say. Yeah. That would have been the first one.
It's probably useful.
It is. And I'm sorry is like, Miss Sorry, man.
That was the first one I learned.
Which is an important one too. Yeah. That's an important one too.
Yeah, you mean
so
Willow.
Dennis, you were there for 15 years, and then you went back to Germany for a year. What was it like to hit the ground again in Jamaica after being in Germany for a year?
Oh wow, it was something else. It was it hit really hard, and not only like on a, how would I say, emotional level, or even like on an intellectual level, but it's something, wow. It was on one hand, because there's like different levels. I think one is of course with the people, so to connect back with what I really consider to be my family as well, my students and other instructors and people I've been living with literally like for many years. That was something else. And yeah, it was even more so more hard hitting, because when we left, in a way I didn't realize myself that we were leaving. So we left with a one-way ticket, but I was like, okay, like, a few weeks over Christmas and New Year, we're gonna, connect with grandma and granddaddy and here in Germany, and we're gonna go back. So we had our apartment there with all our stuff, and so I knew that, my wife really wanted to leave and wanted it seriously, and I was like, okay, I'm open to go with the flow, whatever life, where life flows, that's where we go. And I realized that, I had been trying to push closed doors for many years or like, kicking in closed doors. And I like kind of was opening up to, looking left and right and seeing where life opens up, doors, and where actually, where things flow more easier. But it took me like several months, like even more than half a year, to actually realize, well, actually we're not living in Jamaica. We're not living in Jamaica again. And because of circumstances, it took me a year to come back. So when I came back now, it was like, well, I saw like, all our stuff, the children's toys in the apartment, which my wife's sister was able to take over. So everything was still in place, but it was like going back a year in time, and wow. So, and everybody was happy, of course, to see me, and they were like, oh, you never know, like you were gonna leave and stay away. And I said, I didn't either, and I didn't realize it. It seemed like you guys all realized it like earlier than me. And then of course, what was really also some kind of experience was to go back to the mountain. I had a project in the mountain where I worked for over 10 years, and I really put in everything I had in terms of resources, but also sweat, labor, and So just walking up that road that I carved out of, like really a steep abyss was like, wow. But I literally, like, I felt every day I spent there working. I spent, like, I felt all the hours and the years of work that I put into it. And I looked at the place, and it was overgrown. It's like a tropical climate there, so things grow like really fast there, and it looked like one of those ancient Inca towns, like in the middle of the jungle. And it was like, all those memories that were really like stored and that I have ingrained in me, and those experiences, like, they came back like all at once. And it was really, it was an experience of a kind, really, to have all those memories and those experiences that, like, that are part of me now, to have them like hit me like all in a sudden like that within hours or within a day of coming back. And also, so I took it as a challenge also to kind of, not to be overwhelmed by it, but to kind of observe it. So I really enjoy retaining the ability of detaching and of not fully becoming the emotions, the thoughts, or the maybe even like the physical feelings that sometimes threaten to take charge of us, but to really stand back and to observe what is happening. And that was really an interesting experience to feel the joy, but also to feel the pain and the hardship and all of that, and still to maintain that kind of view, that kind of position of an observer, that I can observe myself going through all those emotions basically, and still look at it and still observe it. So there's still a part of myself who is not completely identified with all of those experiences and with what they did. And that was like a really powerful experience for me I had in those days. And and also of accepting that that life has its own ways, really, and just accepting that I'm going to go with life. I'm not going to put up any resistance to anything, but I'm really just ready to flow with it. And if things turn me back to that space and even to that mountain, then I'm going to work with it. And if not, then I'm going to work with it same way. And just of accepting basically what life has up its sleeve or in its pocket for me. So those were like some of the lessons I guess I can take from the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's really nice, Dennis. And so you spent 2 weeks there, and it sounded like, were you invited back by a filmmaker or something about a documentary, or can you tell us about that?
Yeah, that was also like really a synchronicity, I would say, because of course I had a strong will of returning, but then also circumstances here didn't allow because of work and then the children. And then there was this opportunity where Colleen, my wife, could get time off after she had passed the probation time. And I was like, wow, but the flight back to Jamaica right now it's kind of expensive too, and I'm not sure, and it's like going towards Christmas, and then the children, how are we gonna do it? And I was like kind of hesitant. But then there was this connection that came up, and there was a contact of another contramestre, like a capoeira teacher, who contacted me and asked me about my experience in Jamaica, and said he had heard and kind of studied the website and my story like in Jamaica. And he said he was from São Luís. And that was like, whoa, that was like a first thing, because São Luís is a city in the northeast of Brazil, and it's known to be the Jamaica of Brazil. And I passed through that city like, must have been 18 years ago, on one of my trips through Brazil. And I had some very marking experiences on both ends of the scale in that city. And I was also coined, like, my taste of reggae music and what I saw there was very unique, and probably in some kind of way prepared me also for Jamaica, which is only like later I actually realized that. And so when I heard that he was from that town, I was already like kind of like paying close attention. And he said he studied Capoeira and Black history in Rio de Janeiro, and he was at Harvard University, I think, for a year or for 2 years studying there. And he wanted to do a documentary on involving Capoeira in Jamaica. And I was like, Capoeira in Jamaica, that's like, it's really like a tiny group, you know, it's not like a huge movement with many groups and like, you know, well, I would say like well developed like subculture like it is in many other parts of the world. And he was like, yeah, no, I get that, but you know, I think it's really unique what you did, because you're like you really seem to be like of a generation of capoeira students who would have received capoeira teachings from the first or second generation of Brazilians who would have left Brazil in order to seek, you know, make their fortune, or basically, you know, seek a good life outside of Brazil. So they would have gone to North America, they would have gone to Europe in order to teach capoeira, and it became, you know, like a global phenomena. So people did that in order also to establish themselves better economically in life. But then you are of a generation of people from like a first world country who would have gone back, but not to Brazil or to another first world country, but who would have taken those teachings of the Brazilians and reintroduce it into a third world country like Jamaica. And he said that's almost unheard of. Like, and he said that's really amazing, and that's something, you know, like a lot of people going want to study still. I was like, whoa, really? Like, I didn't even. so I was already like astonished by him kind of going that deep and actually like realizing, you know, or valuing the kind of work that I did there in Jamaica. So that was interesting. And then plus the connection with Saul Louise, and that he also wanted to bring in reggae. So that was like, whoa, there's something, you know, really interesting, because reggae was so important to me and capoeira was important to me. And this guy is from São Luís, the Jamaica of Brazil, and he wants to do a documentary film. So that was like, yeah, I think I have to go to Jamaica still. And then so that was really what made me decide that, yeah, let's, you know, invest this little money for the flight and let's just push through and go back to Jamaica, because it seems really as if the place is asking me to go back there now. So that was the connection also, like of me going back there. So one of the tasks also of the last 2 weeks in Jamaica was to connect with Roberto. His name is Roberto, Contramestre Roberto. And so I was basically guiding him around, introducing him and you know, like basically helping him to cut corners and to connect to the right people. And that is also, I realized, like a value that I can give or that I could provide in that situation, because having lived in a place for so long, you know, and knowing how the place runs, so to say, it made it like easier for me to really to give him the right connection at the right time and to put him in touch with the right people and to bring him to the right places. So he was blown away of what he was able to capture with his camera. And so he's really confident that he's going to actually do like a full-time documentary, and he's going to highlight the connection between Brazil and Jamaica, highlighting reggae, but also capoeira. And so he told me, like, I'm the, I call it the Jamaican co-director of the movie or whatever. I don't know, like, but it was nice because besides reconnecting with the place and kind of how would you say, like cleaning up, you know, not only the apartment but also, you know, settling the relationships with people, with my students, and clarifying all of that, which I couldn't do when I left because I didn't even know I was leaving when I left. I was also able to kind of do something like it's like a preview for the future. So it helped me to really it's not to put an end at the work, but to kind of, I guess, mark that point of time where I can say, okay, you know, I spent 15 years working only like in Jamaica and focusing on that. But now, having left Jamaica, it gives me also an opportunity to assist and to help from a different angle, from a different perspective, in some ways maybe even more effectively. And I thought that this movie, you know, was a great opportunity to not only highlight, you know, capoeira and the work I've been doing and the people are continuing there right now, but also to, you know, to highlight Jamaica itself and to highlight, you know, how people live there and how the real life in Jamaica is, and how it is connected to not only Brazil but also to other countries in Central and even South America who would have had a similar influence, you know, in terms of the colonial history and the slave trade. So I think there's really a lot of potential there for people to see that connection, and in the end to reconnect with themselves and with their own history and culture through that. So that is what made me want to go back to Jamaica and meet Roberto as well, to do that kind of work at the same time.
Wow, that's a lot of synchronicity there, Dennis. A lot of connections. It seems like a lot of your experiences just kind of built upon each other. And it was really fantastic that you were able to connect with somebody that helped you close the loop, like helped you reconnect with everything that you built and established and all. And it sounds like you got a chance to recognize the knowledge that you were bringing to the situation as well with your connections in Jamaica and able to guide him into a really successful outcome. I'm really looking forward to your book, Dennis. When is that coming out?
Well, and well, there was this huge folder that I had lying around there, and I had to carefully evaluate like what I take with me, because one other reason of going back was also that I have so many books there, like all those books that I have, brought from Germany to Jamaica, like over the years, and I have purchased there, and they like were just lying around there, and I was like, oh, even for the consultancies I'm doing and for the work I'm doing, like I would have loved to have some of those books. So that was just another reason to go back to Jamaica, but I had to, like, because it's so expensive to carry back, extra luggage now and weight on the plane. So I had to really carefully evaluate what I'm going to take back. And there was this huge folder of, those are like some recommendation letters that I collected like over the years from ambassadors, and then there were some some handwritten notes of parents, of students, of children, that would have been my students, and that would write down in sometimes almost unreadable words, like how they appreciate it, and or some pictures and some flyers we did. So those were like 15 years of kind of history, like in all different forms and shapes, like in that folder. So I was like, should I take this back, or should I try to like take some pictures, or should I just come back later for it? And then because you're asking about the books, I was like, wow, but this, if I really like look through it and like all those memories come back, and wow, like I probably could write a book, just using this as let me take it. So I took that with me. So maybe, what you just said is just another hint to actually start working on that.
Yeah, I think that, your experience and connecting with the people, having that knowledge, and then I think we don't have that much knowledge of South America or that area of the world and the history. So being able to tie all those things together be really fascinating. And then having the pictures, the testimonials from the people, and the real lived experience, and tying that all up would be really valuable.
Yeah, I think it like even like for my own growth, so to say, is what I can see myself, or the role that I can see myself taking on, maybe even more so than in the past, because I have been like back and forward, like I was visiting home once per year, sometimes every 2 years for Christmas, for New Year, to reconnect with my family for like a week or two. And I always took the opportunity to teach children and students here, or sometimes at university, and tell them about life in Jamaica. And then when I was in Jamaica, I tried to bring some of the reality I would have been exposed to in Brazil or in Germany to them, also to kind of open up a window to a world that they would not have had access to otherwise. So I think that's maybe an ability or an opportunity for me as well to further build upon that, and because I have so to say, have a foot in both worlds. So I've been grown and I was brought up in in established first world, Europe or Germany, but also like I had quite extensive experience of life in in a country like Jamaica. So to kind of like, how would you say, translate like in between those two experiences of living in two vastly different cultures, and even like socio-economic backgrounds, I think that could be quite interesting, because I had that hunger. I remember that like when I was 18 years old, about to finish school, and I was like, wow, like, I went to school for like 13 years and I was supposed to go to university after, and it was like so much in my head. So the education was really just in my head. And when I went to Brazil, like I saw some youths like in the street, and they didn't have like a fraction of the education or the theoretic knowledge that I would have been exposed to, but they were wise, street smart. So they had life experience, and that is really what I was longing for. And that's why I said, no, I'm not going to go to university. I have to go in and gather some of that life experience, which looking back now, I actually did for the last 15 years. So now I think maybe it's time like to kind of combine the two of them, and to see how I can use the experience and the skills that I would have gathered to enable other people also who would not have the chance to experience the other side, or those other side of the globe, or that culture, or that economic background that I would have like life experience in, but how maybe I can translate it and open up windows for other people in those worlds. So in order to bring them together, and in order to be able to appreciate the different life experiences that we really as human beings have been offered to in this reality, so that people can look through the difference in the color of our skin, or in the size, or in the language that we talk, and the food that we eat, and can actually look through that and connect just as human beings on the base of who we truly and who we really are. So maybe that that gives me an opportunity to kind of translate and help people to realize that, and look actually within, instead of look at what we have in common instead of looking at the differences.
That's awesome, Dennis. Hey, we're almost getting close to being out of time, but last week we asked, I just realized that Michael hasn't really spoken very much today. So if he has any questions for you specifically, he can ask them in a moment. But also, if he still has the 3 questions from last week, do you still have the 3 questions from last week, Michael?
I think I could probably figure it out.
So maybe we can figure out what Dennis's opinion on those 3 questions. Thank you, Willow, for reminding me about that. That was awesome. And if you want to chime in, Willow, go ahead, because I think Tim and Agnieszka have been hogging the questions here.
Well, Dennis, I would ask you, since you had so much experience and you talked about having your foot in each kind of society, what's, and being that our theme is the holidays, what's the difference in the holidays between Jamaica and Brazil and Germany that you've been able to see, or some of the unique things that make them uniquely those places?
Wow, the difference in the holidays. Well, honestly, for me, in Brazil and Jamaica, it always felt out of place, because I'm not accustomed to see like Christmas ornaments and stuff like with 30 degrees Celsius in the shade. So that was always like kind of off. But I realized that that's because of my upbringing, because of what I associate with Christmas, like, which is dark outside and cold, and kind of being inside the house most of the day, and being at home and being close to family. So the holidays that I experienced, like in Brazil or in Jamaica, it reflects also it reflects how people live there. It's more outgoing, it's more party-like, I guess you would say. And so that for me, it's kind of, it's not what I'm accustomed to. And I actually, my experience is like far away from the place where I was born and grown. They taught me to hold on and to retain some of what I would have learned and exposed to, and cherish it also. And other things that I also learned to let go. Like I found some stuff like in Jamaica and in Brazil that I really enjoyed and loved, and I kind of adopted to it. And other things I was like, I really enjoy and cherish even more now. What I would have been exposed to, like from my own upbringing. So, but in the end, really, like a Christmas and Christmas time for me, it is really an opportunity to reconnect, with the loved ones, with family especially, but also even with the community, and especially like with yourself. So I take it as an opportunity to really to center and to reconnect with who you really are, and to cherish and to be grateful for what you have in life. And maybe that's something also I learned in Jamaica and in Brazil, to be grateful for having health, for being alive, even for just that. If nothing else is going on in your life at that time, even, but just to be grateful for that, because having seen and experienced like suffering and and ill health and all those terrible things that are also part of our human experience, it make me appreciate so much more what we really have. And sometimes I feel people here, like in a more affluent situation, forget about that. And then sometimes I will hear the problems that they have here, and because of the experience and what I would have been exposed to, like I can it doesn't seem to be so bad. It seems like people live like in a soap bubble, or like very cushioned, cottony life. But it's not to say that they don't feel the same hardship and the problems as well, but it's just the relation, it's different, because we still have to eat. You have you actually have family, you have a roof over your head, so that puts it into a different perspective then. And I never want to I never want to forget, and I never want to lose that, that ability of feeling grateful for what we really have, even if it's just our health, even if it's just, our children, our loved ones close by, or even that what we have right here, right now, the ability of sharing and of communicating across the globe. How fantastic is that? There's nothing that's really granted to us in life. Everything is just borrowed. Even the body that we have, we don't know how long we have it for, another hour, another 10 years, another 50 years, I don't know. So it's we might as well enjoy and appreciate the very moment that we're sharing right now.
Well, I think you might have answered all three of the questions that we had posed for you. I don't know. Anybody want to throw in something that they didn't get out of that? Because I think you really kind of hit all of it. The good things, the bad things. Awesome. Really appreciate Dennis, bringing this story to us, because it's really made this episode, I think, quite interesting, and really love what you're doing there. And I'd definitely like to know more about all of these things.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And I feel a little ashamed because I've been talking most of the time, I think. So I'm looking forward to the next episode when I can ask, you guys some more questions and share your experience as well. But I'm really thankful for that as well. And it's a fantastic way of sharing, this evening, this pre-Christmas evening, or even morning, is it, I guess, already. It's nice. It's unique. Thank you so much for that.
Well, I hope you're not too tired of answering questions, because I had one. We all answered a couple questions in our intros, and I think the most important one, probably because I came up with it, was why are you raising excellence?
Why I'm raising excellence? Well, what else would I raise? Chicken? No, just joking. Why I'm raising excellence? Well, I think that's what I'm really here for. That's why I'm here, to raise excellence, to uncover, to unveil the potential that is there, that is slumbering within me and within others as well. And really and truly, I don't think there's even like a difference. So between me and others, or the differences that we see is really just an illusion. So to raise excellence is really living up to how far I would like to go, to how deep I would like to go. So if we are here in this human experience to really cut through to who we, and to unveil and discover, to unveil who we really are, then that means we have to raise our game, and not according to what society expects, or other people, or mom and daddy, or the teacher, or whoever expects, but to our own expectation, because we don't have to live up to anybody else's expectations, but we really determine how far we want to go in this life, how excellent we want to be, and how far we want to to move forward, because we're still on a journey. So everybody should have the right to determine his own, not only his own path, but also the speed by which he travels. And raising excellence for me means to connect with myself, but also to connect to those who are like-minded, just like you guys, to kind of to have these meetings, to kind of sharpen our edges, by coming together, by sharing experiences, and then hopefully also to reach out to others and let them partake in our experience also, so that they can progress as well. So it's really it's to inspire others, and also to to better myself. That's really why I want to raise excellence. It's like the best thing to do is to treat each other excellent, and to treat yourself excellent as well. And as I said, like, I don't really think there is a difference. So we might as well start with ourselves, and then if the inside always reflects the outside and vice versa, then we might as well work on all ends at the same time. So while working on our own issues, on our own self, why not let others also partake into that, and who's interested and whom resonate with what we are sharing is surely going to be impacted. And so one side always reflects the other. So yeah, that what comes to mind at the moment.
That was very well put. Thank you for answering.
Mm-hmm. Sure, thank you for the question.
So is that all? Are we complete for this evening's podcast? It's gotten dark here again. I just wanted to mention that in a couple of days we're going to have a pajama party for Christmas Day, joined by Deirdre and myself and whoever else can break themselves away from the Christmas festivities, but it actually works for the two of us. And so the pajama party, we'll be talking about Christmas again and overcoming Christmas challenges. So tune in. That's on Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Is that correct, Sam? Yeah, 2
Yes.
p.m. Eastern. So tune in then, and we will see you soon. Have an awesome evening.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you so much,
everyone.
everybody. Thank you.